Hello, beautiful people. In this episode, I talked to my friend Dew. And Dew is a guy who, starting in 2018, we just hit it off and connected because we were doing similar things. We were both interested in e-commerce. And what's really interesting is over the past really 6 months, Dew has transformed himself into someone who's just full of love and full of energy, and he's very much on the path of self-awareness and trying to become the greatest version of himself. And in this episode, we talked about way more than a normal episode of how to succeed at online business. Instead, we talked more about diving deeper into his past traumas, how he overcame almost depression, and we spoke about how quarantine affected and shifted his life and what changes he's made since then. I really, really think you guys are going to enjoy this episode, and without further ado, let's get to it.
Interesting people, thought-provoking conversations, nutrition for your brain. Journey through the minds of the world's top performers and discover what it really takes to achieve your highest version. This is the Danny Miranda Podcast.
My second guest for this podcast experience, actually haven't even named the podcast yet as we're currently speaking, but my second guest is none other than my good friend Dew. And Dew is a hell of a writer, a great character of a person. And I've had the pleasure of reading his thoughts for the past 2 years now. And over the past 2 years, me and Dew have formed a bit of a relationship, a friendship. And Dew, why don't you tell everyone just a little bit about yourself and maybe our relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So before I dive into that, Danny, I just want to say, first and foremost, I really appreciate you inviting me onto this podcast. It is an absolute honor to be your second guest here, and I'm super freaking stoked to chop it up with you, man, and hopefully give our listeners some good knowledge here. But yeah, man, so essentially, right now, I am a full-time entrepreneur, if you want to call it that. I run my own online business, which is a sales agency helping social media influencers sell more of their high-ticket courses and programs. But back in 2018, I was actually a wage slave, if you want to call it that. I was working in a office, showing up in business casual, sitting behind a computer for 8 to 10 hours per day, just crunching Microsoft Excel. But basically, me and Danny, we met each other through Twitter back in 2018. This was during a time in my life where I was very unhappy. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had no real kind of direction. My main priority at the time was just trying to make money. But, on Twitter, we have this very active, very intimate community where we just kind of share life advice with each other, help each other out. And that's where I met Danny. We both started off doing e-commerce, and we were selling things online to consumers. But through there, interestingly enough, we both kind of ran into similar issues related to mental health, and we talked to each other a lot. Was very introspective with each other, and we're kind of on a similar journey right now as well, just trying to be the best versions of ourselves we can be, and focus on how to live a very fulfilling life as opposed to chasing materialism and just more on the surface kind of visions and goals.
Wow, well put, my man. And how do you think that over the past, so talk a little bit about where you were and where you are now and what the difference is and how you think you got there, because I'm really curious about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm an Asian American. I tell this story to everybody, and I think there's a lot of knowledge and wisdom that could be gleaned from this. But the way I grew up, I was a classic golden child where my parents really didn't give me the opportunity to struggle and kind of figure out what my own identity was. So I grew up under this kind of household where the only thing that was really the main focus was, getting a really good job, getting into a really good school, focusing on making a lot of money, buying a big house in the future, and just kind of following that classic American dream, if you want to call it that. I know that the world has evolved significantly, and the definition may not be how it used to be, but that white picket fence lifestyle, that was probably my primary drive to accomplish the things that I have accomplished so far. Now, this was back in the day, of course, right? And me, being the golden child and all, every time I didn't do well on a test, every time I, got a B or something, whatever, if I wasn't top notch in any realm of my life, my parents would let me know right away. And it was kind of harsh at times as well. There was a lot of disappointment. There was a lot of kind of anger around it. And that kind of conditioned me to believe that my entire worth and value lied in my accomplishments. So that set me on a path of not really focusing on what I truly want out of life, but more so, how can I look successful to society? How can I look successful to my parents, right? The thing is, with that kind of upbringing, the pro is it gave me insane self-discipline. It gave me an insane work ethic. And I pretty much was in the top, 5% everything I did, just because that was who I was. I've never truly tasted failure or this idea of not being good enough. That's the pro. It gave me a lot of wins under my belt. But the associated con was, I never knew how to generate self-love internally for myself. So, when I finally got this good job out of college, I worked really hard for it, and I kind of put my head down to get it. Once I started getting into the job and, it got kind of stressful, managers kind of, berating me, me not feeling fulfilled and stuff, I would just think of my parents the entire time. And I always had this voice in the back of my head with my parents telling me, "Oh, Ian, or just put your head down. Don't focus on the struggles. That doesn't exist. Literally, if you just focus on this and just crush it and just don't think about anything else, you will be successful at 30. You will get that house. You will get that car, that job, etc." So it caused me to feel a level of shame every single time I didn't feel like I was fulfilled and I wasn't happy. I would block those thoughts out of my head. And, Dan, as you know, a lot of it is suppression. I would feel stressed, but I would say, this is just part of the game. This is just part of the plan. Forget it. But got to a point where I was suppressing that so much, and I was, putting all my worth into my accomplishments, that it gave me a lot of anxiety, man. I would look at other people enjoying their life, having fun, living very freely. But for me, I just thought, man, these people are losers. These people aren't working hard. But at the end of the day, these people are probably way more woke, quote unquote, than me. I'm just a guy kind of putting my head down, crushing it. Sure, maybe this lifestyle or what I'm doing right now will lead me to, this nice car, this nice house, a lot of money. But why does that matter? What is the main purpose of that if I don't feel good, I don't feel fulfilled and happy internally? So that's what kind of brought me down this path of really trying to figure out who I am. What is my identity? What do I even want out of my life? And it was the first time I really kind of thought for myself, irrespective of what my parents wanted for me. So, this started happening end of 2018. It got pretty bad 2019, but again, just kept suppressing it. But in 2020 is when I truly started to take this stuff seriously. And, through a string of events that happened in my life, I actually fell into somewhat of a depression. And a lot of that was due to just all this suppression for all those years. And, once you kind of hit that proverbial rock bottom, you look yourself in the mirror and you're like, man, if I don't change, if I don't, pay close attention to this, then who knows what'll happen to me in a few years? Like, will I literally just fall into like a full blown depression if I keep ignoring this? So in 2020, that was kind of my breaking point, and I had to feel that internal pain to really, take a step back, drop my ego completely, and just start figuring out what the heck do I truly want out of my life? Who am I? And how do I live a life on my own terms that's completely, in my power and my control, and nobody else is really telling me how to live it. It is completely my decision.
Dude, your self-introspection is incredible and out of this world. I mean, how many people would be in the same situation but wouldn't analyze themselves? And the other thing that I want to touch on is just in order to come to this place you are today, we're talking now in August of 2020. In order to come to this place, you need to go through a period of darkness. And absolutely. I don't know if you needed to, but before your period of darkness, and the same thing happened in my story, so it's very interesting. It's like before a period of right after a period of darkness, you had almost like understanding that you never had before. And talk to me a little bit about like that darkness.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. So I'm a firm believer that a human being cannot truly, truly change and transform himself or herself unless they experience something that literally knocks them to the ground. So for me, my entire life, I've experienced stress, I've experienced a level of anxiety towards certain things. I have fears just like anybody else, but they were never strong enough for me to fully and truly do something about it. So I'll give you an example. In 2019, I was frequently stressed at work. There's deadlines, managers kind of on my ass. It didn't feel good. I would come home tired and just think to myself, dang, this is terrible. This sucks. I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be reporting to some guy who's telling me whether I'm valuable or not. Why is he telling me whether I'm good enough for this job or not? Why is he telling me, oh, this thing that you did in the meeting, you shouldn't be doing that. It's like he's equally as biased, right? And it's like in my mind, I'm like, okay, this is not chill, but it was just a low level of pain. But in 2020 with quarantine, this is a huge change for everybody. At first, I literally, I suppressed this loss of freedom. So everything is closed. I'm cooped up in an apartment by myself up in San Francisco. I have nowhere else, I have nowhere to go to distract myself. I used to go to the gym frequently. Didn't have that anymore. Used to hang out with friends, go to restaurants. Didn't have that anymore. So I had to really, for the first time ever, sit with my thoughts and sit with these demons that were suppressed for so long. So I would sit there in silence, and I would get this kind of urge to want to do something, but I wouldn't be able to do it. And I felt that pain and I didn't know how to handle that pain. And I really opened up my eyes. I was never that good at being by myself. Full disclosure, I was usually always hanging out with somebody. If I was lonely, I would hit somebody up. We would go out and do something. But with everybody kind of in that same boat, the world shuts off and I'm just stuck in my little corner there. At first, it knocked me to the ground really hard, man. And it actually gave me, I don't want to say full-blown depression, but, for the first time in my life, I just did not feel like myself. And it wasn't like anything I've experienced in the past where I really sat there and there's some days where it was hard to get out of bed in the morning because I just didn't know that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I was like, how long is this going to last? Am I going to be feeling this way for the next few months, right? And there's so much uncertainty. So it really took that pain and for me to just feel like my life was kind of crumbling and I didn't have control over my life to get on this path of self-improvement. So I guess the moral of the story there is, things in your life that may seem like that, they're just completely and utterly tragic, right? You're experiencing so much pain. You may not be able to get out of bed. You're just constantly in this state of, crap, man, I'm so lost. That could actually be the biggest blessing in disguise as long as you use that pain to propel yourself into a different mindset or improve yourself in some way. But there needs to be that catalyst. And in my case, and like I said earlier, in everybody's case, in my opinion, is you need to feel that level of pain that goes deeper than just low level stress or anxiety. You need to feel somewhat of a depression. You need to feel shame, things like that, in order to fully transform yourself.
Yeah, I think the emotion that people should be most scared of is apathy. Like when you don't care about anything. But if you have pain, right? It's like you can use that pain. You find some of the best art, you find some of the best music, you find some of the best writing. It's all done when people feel extreme emotions, either pain or happiness, and either way, it's like it's very interesting to see how pain can actually help us and transform us. And it seems so
Right.
counterintuitive, but it really is just the way it is. And so from here, I want to go and talk about how you use that pain, right? Like you're sitting there in that room, and what are you doing? Like when you're analyzing your thoughts, what are you thinking about? What are you reading? Give us the details, because someone else going through this situation might be thinking to themselves, "Oh, there's no hope. What did Do actually do?" And so let us know.
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure. So just to preface that, basically, I came to a very eye-opening realization. When I started feeling that deep level of pain and I found myself, borderline depressed, thing is my ego completely dropped. And I don't know if other people have that same effect, but for me, in the past, being that golden child, never knowing what failure felt like, just feeling like I was the shit, right? Great job, making a lot of money, a lot of friends, like my life is perfect, right? But once I finally, fell and just found myself in such a bad mental space, it made me truly have more compassion for other human beings. And I realized that in the past, every single person that I've judged, every single person I've, cut out of my life, I was a dick to, whatever, right? It wasn't because there was anything wrong with them necessarily. It was all a reflection of my own internal state. So that's something that I realized very, very quickly, where, as I was in that mental state of mind, I felt shame for reaching out to people because I thought, dang, this person probably thinks I'm some super successful guy. I got to put on that front. I got to put on that face. I can't let this guy know that I'm weak. I can't let this person know that I'm like literally sitting in my room right now, like on the verge of tears because I'm so unhappy. Right. So that motivated me to take that first step of just starting to treat everybody in the same exact way as human beings versus I'm a finance guy for a top bank. And some other guy is, some kid in community college. It's like, no, this guy has the same, heart and soul as me and everybody else. We are all the same. We are the same. We're all part of the human race. Mm-hmm. So that's something that was my, the deeper catalyst, if you will. It was that pain, and that pain led me to that realization. So I started just treating people so much better because I thought in my life, like, wow, I've treated people badly and they were probably in a similar state of mind as me, right? Like this guy who is a dick, this guy who is mean to me, this guy who yelled at me, it's not because anything was wrong with me. It was literally because he was feeling exactly what I was feeling, right? He was unsatisfied. He was unhappy. He probably didn't love himself that much at that time. So, if I know what that feels like and I know why I got into that state of mind, I can understand other humans better and understand why they're in that state of mind and maybe why they react in a way that may be negative. So that's what kind of, made me dive into psychology, spirituality, figuring out what my own unique insecurities and traumas are. And I used that to really do a deep dive into myself and figure out exactly why I react the way that I do. So, I look back in my past and I was like, okay, there's this person in X period of my life who I was a dick to and I was rude to him or whatever. I wasn't thinking, okay, how do I stop thinking about that? How do I just move on with my life? No, I embraced it and I thought, why did I do that? what made me want to be a dick to him? What made me react in the way that I did to him, right? And it all comes back to how I felt internally at the time. And at that time, I was unsatisfied with my job, right? I didn't like myself as much as I do now. So because I felt that way, I projected all that baggage onto other people in order to escape my own pain versus facing that pain for myself. So through that, I again did all this analysis on myself, figure out exactly what my triggers are, what my own unique insecurities are, and I use that to understand every other human being and just show more compassion to them. When they overreact, they get mad, they get angry, they say things that they regret. Instead of me firing back at them and saying, bro, chill out, or dude, I hate you, stupid stuff like that. Now I'm like, I've been there. I know exactly why you did that. I know exactly what you may be going through. You just keep going down the rabbit hole. Therefore, I'm going to show you more love. Instead of adding fuel to the fire, I'm going to love you harder, in a way that is very understanding and empathetic. And that way, we could truly grow. Both of us will truly grow from this. And I've just been doing that with every single person in my life, never getting angry anymore, staying calm in all situations, focusing on my, emotional control, and my life has just improved significantly.
Wow, man. It's powerful stuff. It's powerful stuff because I've personally seen the impact of exactly what you're talking about in my own life, and I know it's true and I know it's real, and it's incredible to hear someone speak about it exactly the same way as I think about it. So talk to me about how you've used this new perspective to, have business success, to have friendship success, and relationship success, and family success in terms of treating people the right way, the way you want to be treated, treating people with love and kindness. How has that affected your life in relationships in all aspects?
Yeah, man. So I'll tackle it in two different ways. I'll talk about the business first, and then I'll talk about the, friendships, relationships, things like that. So underpinning both of those categories, the greatest thing that I learned was, through the book I actually recommended to you, Danny, A Return to Love. So that book actually changed my life. And the core principle of that book was, in any given situation, always try to view it through the lens of love versus fear. In the world, there's literally at the end of every problem, every issue, everything that you're going through, right, can be determined by whether you're viewing the situation through love or through fear. So let me give you a tangible example of that, right? Through business, right? Let's say that I was losing revenue in a month, or that month, usually let's say I make 50K per month. That month I made 20K. In the past, before I kind of went down this more, introspective spiritual journey, I would see that and say, okay, this means I'm a piece of crap. I'm doing something wrong. I got to do something to get that 22 of 50 because I attached all my self-worth onto that figure, that number. And I was like, okay, what do I have to do? Right. And I would, find ways to increase that number, get anxious. And even if it ended up kind of screwing some people over, it didn't matter because all I was focusing on was that 22 of 50. But the fact that I was focusing so much on, getting from the 20 to the 50, for example, right? I was viewing every situation through the lens of fear because I was like, why do I care that I made 20K versus 50K? Why do I care? So I go down the rabbit hole. The reason is because I fear that if someone finds out that I made 20K instead of 50, they're going to think I'm not as successful. I look at myself and I think back to what my parents used to say to me, right? It's like, what are my parents going to say if they find out I made I made 20 versus 50, right? So it's all fear. It's just a number on a screen. My life is exactly the same. Who cares? Even if I made 5K that month, it really doesn't matter. My life is the exact same. But it's that fear that you create in your mind that if I don't hit 50, people are going to judge me. I'm going to judge myself. I feel worthless. I feel like I'm not successful. I feel like I'm going to fail, right? That's fear. But if I viewed it through the lens of love, right? Love for myself, love for others, love for opportunities, love for everything. The 50 goes to the 20. I don't care at all, man. Because I now I don't attach my self-worth to the money, to external accomplishments. I'm able to generate that self-love internally now. So now when I see that 50 to the 20, I'll just say, okay, objectively, there's something there like, okay, maybe I'll find some things to do that could get me to the 50. But, I'm not going to stress over it. I'm going to take a walk, just kind of think about it, let go, not hold on to that so hard, right? But during that walk, what I'm doing is I'm focusing on all my blessings, right? Blessing number one, holy crap. The fact that I was even able to make $1 online with my own business. Who can say they've done that? That is incredible, right? Number two, the fact that I can even have this, problem right now. How blessed am I, right? There's people out there on unemployment that take care of people, welfare. It's like, dude, why am I complaining, right? And that's a business example, but on a relationship, human level, it's the same thing, right? It's like someone cuts me off in traffic. Before, with my ego, I'm thinking, oh, this guy's a dick. He's an asshole. Like, screw this guy. You drive by and you flip him off. You feel great for like 5 seconds. And you're like, yeah, I'm accomplished, right? Now, that's fear because you think that because this guy cut me off, it's because, he saw me driving slow and he's judging me for it. It's fear. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about like my well-being. This guy is just like trying to wreak havoc on the world. It's fear because you fear that he has an effect on your emotions and he can ruin your mood and ruin your day. That's why you feel like you want to fire back at him. But viewing it through love, it is literally this guy probably is having a terrible day. He's probably going through something in his life right now that makes him just unhappy and angry. And he's just not in a state of mind right now to be able to handle it maturely. So what am I going to do? I'm going to give him love. I'm going to give him a prayer. I'm going to say, hey, man, whatever you're going through, it's okay. The fact that you took it out on me, it's fine because I can take it. I'm not going to ruin your day more by flipping you off. I'm just going to send you a prayer. I'm going to say, whatever you're going through, I hope you get through it, man. I'm here with you. I wish you well. I wish you the best. I understand you. I have empathy for you, etc. Every situation with every human being, I view it through that now. And not only am I putting out good energy into the world, but I'm not contributing to negativity. I'm not making him feel like, okay, this guy, cut me off. I flip him off. Now it makes him feel like a piece of shit,
Bro, so beautifully said. And first of all, thank you for gifting me that book because that book was the linchpin, the key piece that helped identify so many different things for me and helped explain to me why my yoga teacher was talking the same way as Eckhart Tolle, as the same way as other spiritual books I read. And it was crazy to see that was the piece that was missing for me. So A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, I believe, and was an absolutely incredible book. And I read it at the perfect time, and you gave it to me at the perfect time. And I'm so grateful for it and so grateful for you for gifting it. But one thing I want to talk about, which is that when you go through that situation and, I know some people are going to be listening to this and be like, well, bro, how could you possibly every single time someone flips you off, how could you never be angry? How could you just give love to everyone? Aren't you ever a human being? Aren't you ever normal? And I think I want to touch on that and touch on the importance to understand that just because Du is saying that, I give the person love who hates me, doesn't mean that we're perfect or that I do the same thing. And it doesn't mean that you have to be perfect as well. It just goes to just about thinking about, can you, in this situation, give someone love? And then if you don't, if you get really angry, can you then recognize that you were acting in fear instead of acting in love? So I don't want to paint the picture. I mean, Du might be way more advanced than me, but I know I get angry at times. I still get upset. There's things that happen, but you have to just understand and recognize and give yourself love for recognizing that you're acting in fear in that situation. you agree with that?
Danny, that's completely accurate, man. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad you brought that up because I actually wanted to mention that after this, where this new wave I'm on, if you want to call it that, right?
The
It's
new
not
wave.
about, yes, dude. So this is not about being positive and happy 100% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
That is an unrealistic expectation because we are human beings, right? There's no way you could just be this stoked guy full of energy 24/7. And to expect that out of other human beings and yourself is spirituality and self-love backwards, because the fact that you get angry at times and get sad, maybe even get depressed, fall back into old, states of minds, and you judge yourself for it, that is exactly what we want to avoid. So in any of these situations, right, if you're sending love to people, you're trying to do better at spreading positivity, understanding people, having empathy, instead of charging at them, berating them, discouraging them, things like that to make yourself feel better. All it is having awareness of the why behind all of your reactions and everybody else's reactions. So let's use that example of getting flipped off again, right? Or I'm sorry, not getting flipped, but getting cut off. So if a guy cuts me off in traffic, yeah, that bothers me. I'm not going to sit there with a big smile on my face and be like, okay, yeah, let's just let this happen. No, I'm not going to be a pushover over it. But at the same time, now I am simply aware of why I felt angry. So before, right, I think a lot of people, what they do is they focus on the how. So they put Band-Aids on certain issues. So if this guy cut me off, I'm angry. If I'm thinking, okay, how can I not be angry, right? I'm trying to push out that anger versus letting it kind of sit and disappear on its own. So if I'm trying to force out anger and emotions, all that does is it gives it more power, right? And it just sticks in your soul, and it's just not good for you. So how? It's like, oh, maybe I'll put on some music, I'll feel better. Maybe I'll open the window, get some air, I'll feel better, right? Those are temporary solutions. You're just putting a Band-Aid over the issue. But now, with the added level of awareness, instead of asking how, it is purely asking why, right? This guy cut me off. Why do I feel angry right now? Acknowledge it. I feel angry. Maybe I feel a little sad, but why? What is the reason, right? If you just keep going down the rabbit hole, you'll eventually come to the conclusion that it's because you're acting out of fear, right? So to be a little more specific, it's at the end of the day, I am angry because with this guy cutting me off, it made me feel like I was unimportant. It made me feel like he disrespected me. It made me feel like my value wasn't as, high as I thought it was, right? Every single person at the end of the day will come to, one of those conclusions. And it's just fear, I fear that this guy has control over my emotions. That's why I react angrily or in a sad manner. So as long as you're just aware and you know exactly why you feel the way that you do, right? The problem usually disappears on its own. So you think, oh, I'm reacting because it is just me. I'm generating this fear internally by myself. It wasn't his problem, his issue. There's no such thing as him doing something to me. It is him doing something objectively and me reacting to it through my own lens, through my own assumptions. So all I have to do is change my assumption in the situation. Instead of viewing him as a dick who deserves to get flipped off, now it's literally, this guy is someone who is a child, his inner child, if you will, is in pain. How can I make sure that he gets more love? How can I make sure that he feels better about himself, that his situation in life is improving? And while I can't, just hop out of the car on the highway and like give him a hug, at least I can just send him a prayer and just send good thoughts to him. If I send good thoughts to him, he benefits and I benefit as well. It is a net positive. And as long as you just do this to every single person around you, the world will be such a better place. So again, TLDR, don't feel bad about reacting. Don't feel bad about feeling like you can't be angry. Let it out, man. Feel those emotions. Let it out. But just remember at the end of the day, have that awareness of, why am I reacting this way? Why am I feeling this way? Because at the end of the day, it is not the other person's fault. It is never the other person's fault. It is just something that happened, and you have the choice in this very moment to determine whether you want to view that situation through love or fear.
What's so interesting in that situation, with the guy flipping you off is that when when he flips you off and you get upset about it and you feel angry, he has control over your emotions, someone else does. But when you choose to act and see the situation with love, you then get to retake control over the situation. You get to retake control over yourself. And you're not allowing someone else to have control over what you're feeling anymore. And love, that's why it's the ultimate. And that's why I preach it so much on Twitter and will be on this podcast, is because when you give love, it expands. It expands the situation, it radiates, and it allows you to feel good all the time. And while that is not maybe for myself right now, maybe that's not practical to feel good every single moment, every single second, but it is a good ideal to live up to. If we can give love to everything and at all times, if we could keep our heart open, as Michael Singer would say, then we can benefit and we can always feel that love and happiness emanating from within.
Right. And the thing, dude, yeah, like on Twitter as well, right? So for everybody listening, if you don't follow us on Twitter, we have a lot of followers on Twitter, right? We would be considered, influencers, if you want to call it that, right? With that, obviously comes, with a lot of trolls, comes with a lot of people who are, they just view our tweets in a certain way through their own perception that is interpreted negatively or whatever, right? So I get a lot of optical hate on Twitter. People are responding to my tweets and just saying mean things, rude things.
I don't know how, bro. I have no idea how. You're the nicest guy in the world.
Bro, thank you. I appreciate that. But in those situations, I slip up a lot. I get angry, and there have been times where I put them on blast. I'm like, yo, look at this guy, just adding fuel to the fire, adding more negativity. Bro, I slip up all the time. But the difference now is I don't shame myself for it, right? I go to sleep that night thinking about that situation and being aware of why I felt the need to call him out. Why did I feel the need to say this mean thing back to him? And as long as I find out that why, I acknowledge it and I say to myself, it's okay. You won today because you were mature enough, emotionally mature enough to recognize why you reacted that way. So all you can do is just be better in the future. Try to be better in the future. Try to minimize the amount of times that you do this. And you go to sleep with that in mind, and you just feel so at calm and at peace because that is you truly loving yourself. You don't love yourself because you're positive 100% of the time. You love yourself simply because you just understand exactly why you react in the certain way that you do and giving yourself, a pat on the back for recognizing it.
Beautifully, beautifully said. So before you mentioned the inner child, and I wanted to touch on the inner child because the inner child is something that I've thought a lot about recently, and I think that a lot of people would get value from. What does connecting with the inner child mean to you, and how have you connected with your inner child?
Yes. So my interpretation of that may be a little different, but this is how I view it. So in my honest opinion, I like to use the word God, right? I have my own kind of personal definition of that. I subscribe to Christian ideals, but when you're born, you're perfect. You are absolutely perfect. You are a bright-eyed human being who, the world is your oyster. You are full of curiosity. You are full of love. You are just an amazing, amazing entity. But as we grow up, there's influences that condition us to start viewing our world through the lens of fear. So, you are at school and you are, you show up to class a little late or whatever. Your teacher yells at you, right? That makes an impact on you. You're at home. You spill your milk or whatever. Your parents yell at you. That makes another impact on you. These little things, maybe you want to call death by a thousand cuts, but it's every little thing that happens to you on a day-to-day basis as you grow up makes an impact on you and gets stored in your subconscious mind, right? So you go from this perfect, curious, loving child with no judgment whatsoever into an adult who starts to view the world more cynically, starts to have an ego that they put up to protect themselves from potential harm and stuff, right? And I think the majority of human beings to this day are still operating under that, heightened ego state. where they take everything personally. They think that whatever happens to them, they have no control over. And, they think that, if they don't pass the test or whatever, right? Like they're just a piece of shit. They're a failure and stuff because in the past, when they didn't do something right, maybe their parents yelled at them, berated them, right? And as a child, didn't have the awareness to be able to cope with that. So they shut themselves off. They put up walls. And now they live the rest of their lives thinking that in order to survive, I got to keep these walls up. I got to start blaming other people. I got to not take responsibility for my actions, things like that. So for me, the inner child is literally in any given situation, trying to think back to that previous state of you being that elementary school kid, that preschool kid on the playground, just loving everybody, not seeing color, right? Just whatever you look like, whatever you say, whatever your background is, like this is just another potential friend. I'm hugging everybody. I'm shaking everybody's hand. I'm, having a great time with every human being, right? Just reconnecting with that and trying to just figure out like, what are these fears that I carry today that are screwing up my life? How can I get back to that state of mind where I was a perfect child? And a lot of people think that in order to improve, in order to, get better, they need to add things to their life. They think I need to be more successful. I need to, get this job. I need to make more money. But at the end of the day, no. If you want to do that inner child work, the key is to eliminate things from your life in order to get back to that original state. You are already perfect at the core, but what's hiding that perfection are your fears, your insecurities, your traumas, the condition that you picked up from childhood, that, those walls that you put up to try to protect yourself, right? As long as you start shedding those layers, you don't have to quote unquote gain anything. You would just have to shed all those fears and you will get back to that state of mind of you being a curious, wonderful child. And, Return to Love uses this analogy, but I think it's freaking amazing where, when Michelangelo was sculpting David, he viewed it as this marble, this rectangular marble right now with no shape. Underneath it is David. Underneath it is a perfect statue. I just have to get rid of the outer layers, which are the fears, the insecurities, the trauma. And as long as I get rid of that, underneath it, it will be a perfect statue. As opposed to the other way of thinking is right now, this is an imperfect statue and I got to sculpt it to make it perfect.
Bro, it's so funny that you bring up that quote because I read the book while I was reading the book. I put that quote up on my board in our kitchen. I just put it up there because it resonated so much. It's exactly the type of thinking that happens whenever we create art, whenever we live life. It's like, how can we remove what is already there to create the perfection that already is? And I think what you touched on with the preschool example is amazing. And it's about judgment, right? It's like before we go to school, we don't judge anyone. We don't judge anything. We don't have any sense of how do I stack up against this person? What is smart? What is not smart? What is athletic? We don't even know. We have no idea. We don't have a care in the world. And maybe it's not practical for the world to operate this way forever, but it does show that once you go to school, once you start to compare yourself, you then start to judge. You then start to ask yourself, well, I'm only getting a 75 and someone else is getting an 80. They must be smarter than me. And then it becomes, oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. I wish I was this. You start to not only judge other people for how they're dressing, for how they're living, you start to judge yourself. You say to yourself, oh my God, I'm not good enough. And all of this goes to say, all this is not necessarily a bad thing, but we have to understand it and be aware of it and understand that we are judging beings once we start getting into the system that we're in. And can we prepare ourselves better for a living? Is there a better way, a better operating system, a better mental model to use? And this is exactly what it is. It's using love. It's to lessen the judgment of yourself and others. And I'm so grateful that you touched on all this. Beautifully said, man. Beautifully said.
Yeah, no, thank you, Danny. Thank you. And, I want to make a note as well. Like, obviously I'm speaking all these things, right? I'm saying all this, knowledge or whatever, but in the past, man, like I'm not a perfect, like I fell victim to this very, very heavily. You know, like for the majority of my life, I would say I was operating through a fearful lens, and I used success and, you know, my ego to cope with that. You know, so I've hurt a lot of people in the past. People have hurt me, you know, both ways. I've found myself feeling extremely shameful for my actions, immense guilt, things that have kept me up at night, right? But it took those experiences, going back to that very first point we made, feeling that pain, that inner guilt and shame, for me to truly change myself and understand, you know, how I operate, how others should operate, how the world operates. So this is all sponsored by direct experience. You know, I had to go through a lot of stuff in my life to get to this point. So this isn't just me kind of reading a book and reiterating these points.
And also the point is, this is a never-ending journey, right? Like we're just getting started on this, and it's not like we figured it out or anything like that. That's not the perspective I want this podcast to come from. This is a podcast of explorers. I'm exploring life. You're exploring life. We're all figuring it out. And I never want it to appear like this is the way it is. And, you know, if I don't believe this, then that's wrong. And if you don't believe that, screw you. You know, it's like, this is just the way I'm seeing the world right now. This might be the way you're seeing the world right now. And it's like, we're growing, we're learning. And I hope in 5 to 10 years, we see flaws in our current arguments, and we see, and I'm sure we will. And that's the point of this, to grow, to expand, and to document the process along with everybody listening.
Precisely, Danny, precisely. It is the difference. Yeah, it is a journey. It is not a destination. It is a journey. It is a constantly evolving, you know, path of self-improvement, you know, and it's totally okay for some of our current ideals, some of our current principles that we have in mind to warp and change and maybe even completely be eliminated altogether. The point is, as long as you're living consciously, right, every single day of your life, you are constantly thinking to yourself, how can I be the best version of myself? How can I improve? How can I just be better, right? Versus living a life where, you know, you say some stuff to someone says some stuff to you, and the entire time you're like, oh, screw him, I'm whatever, you know, I'm moving on with my life. Like, oh, I'm a piece of shit or whatever. Like, dude, I'm a failure, you know, like these are all fears, right? It is just literally, I feel these things. He did this to me. I did this to him. Let's figure out why, right? Once I figure out that why, how do I get better? The next day, I'm just going to get 1% better. I don't have to be perfect, but again, it is this long lifetime journey of just constantly striving towards that ideal state that you want to be.
Beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful, man. And I think that we put so much pressure on ourselves we see someone who we want to be like, and we think to ourselves, how could they ever be like that? How do they look like that? And it was something I was talking to Tej about in podcast number 1, was just like how we can project and we can see all these people that are where we want to be, and we think to ourselves, well, what did they look like before we started? And so, you know, how have you just coped with that? And how have you looked at people you want to be like, or people who you admire, and how have you coped with the fact that, you know, you're not there, and to not look to them and say, you know, like, I want to be them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yep. So what I do now is, again, you know, in the past I said that whatever is out there in the world today, however we view people, it is always a projection of our own internal state. So if I don't love myself, if I'm super harsh on myself, if I think that I'm a failure and, like, you know, I have low self-esteem, you know, I will start to judge other people based off of how I judge myself. So in the past, I judged myself for, you know, the amount of money I made, what my job was, right? How many friends I had, things like that. They're all external markers of success. So therefore, I looked at other people with more money than me, more friends than me, you know, more lavish stuff or whatever, right? And I would judge them for it. And I would feel, you know, intense jealousy. I would feel bad about myself. And it's just a bad way to just view things. But once I started viewing myself and, you know, not basing my self-esteem, confidence, you know, my identity on external accomplishments, but more so on these intangible kind of internal characteristics, such as, you know, my loyalty, my honesty, my integrity, things like that. right? I started viewing every other person for those exact traits. So even if some guy has a bunch of money, he's super rich, he's like a huge flexer on Instagram, and it's like, wow, this guy's so much better than me optically. At the end of the day, now I just view people as, how I view myself internally. So, all right, like, does this guy have integrity? Does he have, is he loyal? Is he a good person? At the end of the day, is he a good person or not? Right. So when I view other people like that, I rarely get jealous anymore. I just don't care, because everything external, it's like, so what, man? You have a lot of money, but I know for me, I'm calling my friends constantly to check up on them during COVID. If one of my friends needs help, I'm on the phone. I'm talking to him. If my family's busy, I'll pick up dinner for them or something. Like, I have these intangible traits that I judge myself on that make me believe that I'm a good person. Therefore, that's how I view people in general now, and I just don't have envy.
Brother, it's a lot like looking at people from a perspective of peers, a peer relationship, as opposed to a hierarchical one, right? It's like looking at someone and understanding that, yeah, they might have a lot of money, but that's a person. Or, yeah, someone might not have any money, but that's a person. And if you can understand that and you can apply that, which it sounds like exactly you are, then you are able to treat people like human beings. And that's what it's all about, baby. You know what I mean?
That's what it's all about. Dude, exactly. And your life will literally transform once you stop putting these false kind of comparisons and like labels onto people, right? It's like, who cares if this guy has $1 million house, he's got $1 million in his bank account? Who cares if this other guy has $1 in his bank account, he's working at McDonald's, right? Everybody at the end of the day has something to offer, right? I don't judge you because you have money or you have this, right? It's like, I can learn from the rich guy equally as much as I can learn from the quote unquote poor guy or whatever, right? And I can even learn more from the poor guy, right? If the poor guy is literally, helping the homeless, right? He's like putting on for his family, working day and night. It's like, I'm going to be talking to that guy, learning about how he views himself in the world, and like, figuring out how he approaches every situation, right? Because you just want to be curious, man. You want to be that preschool kid again, just accepting of everybody. And you just do you, man. You live your life how you want to live it. You accept other people for how they want to live it.
Yeah, man. And it's so crazy how it all ties back together with the preschool kid, because it's like, that is when you're acting in that state with curiosity, you don't have any idea what the social norms are. You don't care about anything. You don't care about saying the right thing. You don't care about appearing a certain way. You just are. And so a funny story that my grandmother always tells is, when I was in preschool or kindergarten, I got on the bus first day and I saw the bus driver, and I said to the bus driver, "Hey, you have the same color skin as my grandfather." And my grandpa is really tan. And the point was that I just had no idea that you can't just talk to – I'm just talking to someone as if like the color of the skin and pointing it out first thing. But the thing is, I didn't know that was an incorrect thing to say or anything like that. And there's some beauty in that I was not judging this person. I was just commenting and saying, hey, like, that's interesting. And, we've gotten into this place of judgment in our society, and we've gotten into this place in personally speaking, I was such a judgmental person after kindergarten. So it's like, I understand it, and it's hard to break out of that. But I really believe that you've given people a roadmap to do that.
Yeah, thank you, Danny. I mean, that's a good story, dude. And I can think of so many experiences in the past when I was a young child as well, where I did, very similar things. I didn't have any idea about being PC, social norms, whatever, right. These constructs society puts together. It's like literally, I've had those experiences too. It's like, oh, your skin color is like the same as this. It's such an innocent statement, because you're literally just saying objectively that this person's skin color is similar to theirs. You're not insinuating like, oh, this person is like inferior, like superior. Right. Yeah.
Right. And so it just goes to show, we have these constructs and we have these ways of thinking about it, and we have to just have some compassion in our heart. And that is compassion for, people who feel oppressed, compassion for people who don't feel oppressed, compassion for people who are judgmental. If we can have more compassion, then we could be better off.
Easily, man, easily. I think that there's so much negativity being propagated by the media constantly. There's people being divided across political lines, racial lines, right? I mean, in an ideal scenario, we would all be so loving and accepting of each other, and it doesn't matter, who cares how much you make, what skin color you are, etc. It's tough because we are so deeply ingrained as a collective into these, fears and these judgments. But it all starts with yourself, right? You could view that and be like, the world is doomed. I'm literally just going to contribute to this decline. I don't care. Or you could live a life of honor, right? And of a principle, and say, even if I can contribute to one person, two people, three people, and help them love themselves more, be more confident, not be so stuck in their own head just through my actions and just me giving them compassion and showing them what compassion looks like. If I can just do that, man, I'm a winner. That's what I'm here on this earth to do, man. Just to spread love and be more compassionate to other human beings.
Dude, I actually have that as a draft in my tweets right now. Is really? placed on this earth to spread love and compassion. Bro, it's crazy. I'm just blown away by this. These connections and synchronicities. And
yes.
Bro, it's like we are so blessed. And the point I want to make is that when you focus on the micro, or the macro rather, when you focus on the big picture, it can get overwhelming. If you focus on your goals 5 years from now, or you focus on your total complete potential that you can achieve, or you focus on solving world hunger, or solving to make everyone better, or over flipping the system, you're going to get overwhelmed really quickly. So what do? You focus on what you can control. You can control your reaction. You can control your kindness. You can control saying hi to someone on the street. You can control being a good person and picking up trash when you see it on the street. You can control going to the supermarket and saying hello and treating the person who's ringing up your groceries with respect and asking them, how's your day doing? When is your shift over? Have you seen anything crazy today? The point is not to be fake to these people, to anyone you come across. The point is to really care and be genuine. And I hope and pray in my heart that everyone experiences that genuine love for the other person, even if you've never met them, even if you're just coming across them for the first time, even if you're just seeing this person for the first time and understanding that this is a human being and treating them that way. If you have compassion in your heart and treat that interaction will spread, and the micro will soon become the macro. So you need to take control of what you can control, be compassionate, be kind, and be a helpful human being on this floating rocket we call Earth.
Bro, you are you're so stoked right now. I love it, dude. I love it. I can see you beaming with energy, dude. I love how this conversation is making you so happy, which makes me happy. But bro, after you just said that, I just thought of something that I think a lot of people definitely need to hear, and it coincides directly with what you just said. So what I like to do with a lot of people, and I like to ask them this question, right? And the question is, what do you think is the greatest gift that you could give another person, right? And I want everybody listening right now to really ponder that, right? My answer to that is to love yourself. So let me repeat that. The greatest gift you can give to other people is to simply love yourself.
I love this so much.
It seems so counterintuitive because you're like, okay, isn't that kind of selfish, right? It's like, so you're saying me giving a gift to somebody else is me actually loving myself more and has nothing to do with the other person? It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, but dude, let me explain this to you. This will blow so many minds here. And this actually changed my freaking life.
This also changed my life as well. Keep going, dude.
If you don't fully embrace your true power. If you don't fully love yourself 100%, right? Maybe not 100%, but if you feel like you are unlovable, you are worthless, you're down in the dumps, you feel like you don't have value, what that does is that causes you to project that own inner self-hatred and low self-confidence onto every single person around you. So let's say you're not feeling that good, right? You are in this constant anxious state of mind. Someone comes up to you and offers to help you, right? Or someone comes up to you and just says something very simple like, hey, we should go to the gym, right? Depending on how you view yourself, you will react to those statements differently than if you were to love yourself. So the person who doesn't love themselves, feels insecure inside, will view the person saying, yo, let's start going to the gym together, man, whatever, right? They'll view that as pity. And they'll start to get defensive and say, whoa, you think I'm not exercising? Whoa, you can't tell me what to do. They view it as a very kind of controlling OCD, negative connotation to it. But if you love yourself, you view that simply as someone who wants to help you, someone who sees value in you, someone who literally just wants to bring you up and contribute positive vibes. You view it so differently. It's the same situation, but you just view it differently. So if you're not loving yourself, you're insecure, again, you're just, causing people to react negatively. You're reacting negatively to other people, and which causes them to also think, man, am I doing something wrong? Do I have flaws? So you're casting your own negativity and insecurities onto the other person, which in turn makes the other person more insecure, less confident in themselves. And now they spread it and so forth and so forth. So if you love yourself, you will naturally stop projecting your own fears, insecurities, and whatever onto other people. And now you interact with every single person through the lens of love. And just by simply being around you, everybody benefits.
Holy smokes. You just described exactly what I did and why it worked. So what I did starting around March 15th is I would say to myself every day, I love myself. And I would say it to myself 10 times, 10 times in a day, 10 times in a row. And I got this practice from Kamal Ravikant in Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. And the key takeaway, and I still do this practice this day, when I find myself just having a low moment or just around, I'm just like, I love myself, just repeating it over and over in my head. Before I go to sleep, I do the same thing. And the realization that it let me in on was that you can only love yourself. You can only love someone else as much as you love yourself, no more. So if your love for yourself, let's say, is at a 6 out of 10, you can only give your mother, you can only give your father, you can only give your sister or brother, you can only give your friend a 6 out of 10. But if your love is at a 10, if your love for yourself is at a 10 out of 10, you can give that 10 to other people. And then they can then give that 10 to other people. It goes back to the macro, starting with the micro. And if you really want to change the world, you have to love yourself. And thank you so much for explaining that so beautifully, my man.
Bro, thank you so much, dude. You're hyping me up, dude. You're hyping me up hard, so I appreciate it, dude. I'm just a man, bro. I'm just a regular guy. So
that's how I feel too. And the crazy thing is, you're speaking to exactly what changed my life. Exactly, and why it changed. So if anyone's going through a hard time, please, I beg of you, don't just do the practice. Say, I love myself in your head 10 times a day and with no expectation of anything to happen. And just see what happens. And then DM me on Twitter or send me an email. Please, I beg of you, if you do this for a month straight or 2 months straight, please send me an email. Please send Kamal Ravikant an email. I'm sure he would love to hear from you. Seriously, I would.
Yeah.
I think this really could change your life if you're in a down situation or you're just trying to figure out what's going on. Just start by loving yourself. Everything else will take care of itself.
Right. And the reverse is also true as well, where how in my example I said, if you don't love yourself, you're going to be negative to other people. You're going to project your own insecurities on the people, right? But it goes the other way as well. let's say somebody else starts projecting their insecurities onto you. They start, saying mean things to you, right? If you fully love yourself, you will start viewing that situation through a completely different lens. So let's use a tangible example here. Let's say, someone starts saying some stuff about you being lazy, or, just comes at you super hot for whatever reason. It's like, bro, like, you are so lazy. You're like, dude, get your ass off the couch, or whatever, right? Thing is, like, you hear that, and if you are not in this self-love state of mind, you will interpret that as a personal attack or personal jab on yourself, and you will get crushed. And I used to fall victim to this so much in the past, where people would say something to me. I would take it so personally, and I would be hurt, man. Like, words would hurt me so much, and I would freak out, and I'd be like, damn, that just ruined my entire day, dude. Am I lazy? Am I not good enough? Like, all this stuff. And I let other people's judgments completely, warp how I viewed myself. But if you love yourself and you know yourself, right? Let's say someone says, you're lazy, bro, like something mean. Now you're not viewing him as this guy who's being mean to you. Now you're viewing him as a guy who also needs to love himself more. He is in pain. He is simply projecting his own insecurities onto me. Therefore, because I know that, I'm going to view him through the lens of compassion now and say, okay, that's fine. If you think that, no worries, or you just don't even react to it, But yeah, if you just view other people as people in pain, people who are projecting their own insecurities onto you, I mean, the best you could do at that situation is just to show them compassion back, give them a hug, give them a compliment. Just don't react negatively. Don't add fuel to the fire. You do that, that other person will see how you reacted and think to himself, interesting. Maybe what I said was kind of a dick thing. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to be better now too. So by you simply loving yourself, you simply reacting compassionately back to someone who slanders you or does something mean to you, it actually inspires them just through your actions to start being more like you as well. And again, domino effect spreads to everybody around you.
Right. And it's like, imagine if you start screaming at that person. What is that person going to do? They're going to start screaming back. But instead, if you give a hug to them, they're like, that's interesting. And it's amazing that, like, what you think about yourself, your judgment about yourself gets reflected in the reality of that situation. So that's an incredible aspect of all of our lives here, that our mind can control what actually happens in the world. I mean, that's bizarre, right?
Yeah, exactly, man. And it's literally like how you judge other people, right? If you think this person is X, Y, and Z, right? It truly means you are insecure in yourself about being X, Y, Z. You think you at the core are X, Y, Z, or you might be X, Y, Z, and you're just calling out another person for what you are insecure about in yourself. At the end of the day, that's all it is.
Absolutely. And it goes to show so much, like, my mom always used to say to me, like, the things that you are insecure about, you will point out in other people, not me personally, but just in general, and it's so true, because we see our flaws in others. But if you can then turn that into love, and love yourself and love your own flaws, and truly and deeply love your own flaws, it allows you to see the good and see the positive and see the light in other people.
Absolutely, Danny. Absolutely.
All right, brother. This has been a hell of a podcast. I'm so grateful for you. Do you have anything else to say to the people who are listening?
Oh, man. What a loaded question, my friend. What a loaded question.
I had to do it.
Bro. I had to do it. Yeah, man. I could talk for 8 more hours, bro. That's a very good question. But let's see. Let's see if I can kind of boil down some of these thoughts that I have and just make it very, very actionable. So I think at the end of the day, right, given everything that we've talked about here, I have no real new insight to give. Everything's been pretty cut and dry, laid out in this podcast. But I think, again, the point that we just really need to, hammer into people's minds is to just work on loving yourself. Life is so short, right? The person that you claim to hate, the person that you claim to, ruin your life, this person that you yelled at, dude, at the end of the day, it is just useless. It is, just wasting energy at the core, right? You could wake up the next day, you could get a brain tumor, you could get cancer, You could have one of your loved ones, get ran over by a car, just like a freak accident. You never know what's going to happen. And you got to think about it. Do you truly want your last days on earth to be, defined by this person that you freaking destroyed because he said something mean to you, right? Do you want your last day on earth to be defined by you waking up in the morning and constantly holding this anger towards that person 3 years ago who maybe, took your money and didn't give it back, right? Like, it's just all about love, man. It's all about love. For all you religious people out there, God is good, man. God is really good. What I do is I go to sleep every night, 15 minutes, no matter what, always praying to God, always praying to him. Psalm 46:10, man, be still and know that I'm God, right? At the end of the day, that's all it is, man. Peace, love. Well, what's the last two? Unity, respect. I don't know, I'm just saying random stuff now, but yeah, it's I'm starting to ramble here, but bro, just listen to the podcast over and over again, man. You'll get everything there.
Brother, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. It also, one thing we didn't mention, I don't think we mentioned explicitly in this podcast the entire time, Conscious Living by Gay Hendricks. Check it out. This is a book that I sent to Do, and that Hunter Weiss, shout out Hunter Weiss for recommending it to me. Incredible book, and help put into perspective a lot of these concepts from a guy who has actually dealt with patients as a therapist and just a brilliant dude. So check out Conscious Living by Gay Hendricks. And I think that's pretty much it. Also, tell them, dude, where they can find you. On the interwebs.
For sure. So I have a Twitter profile. So it's twitter.com/thedulab. So that's my username at the Dulab. So THEDULAB. It's a play on words of the Coachella Dulab. But if you want to learn more about, what we talked about in this podcast, hear more of my hot takes, learn how to start viewing the world through more compassion, loving yourself more, and whatever. Yeah, hit me up through there. Shoot me a DM, follow me, whatever. I'm always down to chop it up, and just don't be shy.
Brother, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and I'm so grateful to have you on this podcast.
Bro, likewise, man. Likewise. You've been an insane influence in my life, man. I think this is one of, the greatest friendships I've made to this date. So I just want to say, man, I appreciate you a lot. And I also love you a lot, Danny. So we should definitely run this back again sometime in the future for a part 2. But for now, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day and keep shining, bro.
No doubt. We'll definitely run it back. All right, brother. Have a good one.
Yep. Take care, bro.
That was my interview with my good friend, Do. If you would like more from me, you could check out my newsletter, Tuesday Treasure. I send a quick email every week on Tuesdays with just the coolest information I find. If you want to support me, you can sign up for that. And just keep on loving life, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure getting this interview and conversation handed over, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.